All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the spring circuit meeting. And this portion is entitled Diversity in the Practice of Law. I'm Marquita Christie. I'm the circuit clerk for the 13th Circuit, which equates to the regional rep for all the schools in Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I want to thank you guys for taking the time out on your Saturday to attend this webinar presented by the Law Student Division of the American Bar Association. This topic was chosen primarily for promoting diversity within the legal field, and it is an important initiative of the ABA as one of the 4 key priorities in committing to eliminating bias and enhancing diversity within the legal field. This morning we have 2 distinct panelists, Attorney Wanda Davis, a partner at Leaf Gibbs in Meteorate, Louisiana. She's a 1985 graduate of Southern University Law Center and has been a trial attorney for over 30 years. And we also have attorney Katrina Castillo, and she's currently an attorney with the Florida Department of Children and Families, and a long friend of the ABA from the Law Student Division and YLD. And I appreciate both of you ladies participating in our webinar today. Would you like to give a quick introduction, or you want to go straight into questions?
Katrina Castillo. I currently work for the Florida Department of Children and Families. Previously, I worked with the D.C. city government in labor and employment policy. I have an LLM from American University Washington College of Law in law, politics, and legislation. And like I said, I've been at my current job since May of 2015. So.
Okay. So to start off our discussion, what is your definition of diversity and what does it mean to you?
Ms. Davis, would you like to start?
Sure. Diversity means the inclusion of all persons of gender, of race, disability, and giving them a fair place in leveling the playing field.
I would absolutely agree with that definition. Diversity isn't limited to race or color or gender specifically. It's about including everybody in all walks of life, in all religions, or every version of the human population. It's about inclusion for everybody is my definition of diversity.
Okay. And according to the American Bar Association, only 2 professions have less diversity than the field of law. Do you feel that the legal profession as a whole values diversity?
I think it's not a matter of not valuing diversity. I think it's a matter of the legal profession has had a hard time reaching diversity. We give many diversity seminars. The Louisiana State Bar Association is in its 9th year of sponsoring a diversity conclave. I've attended almost all of those conclaves, but I find the problem with attending them is that you're preaching to the choir. The people who actually are interested and who are working hard towards diversity are the only persons there. And so I think that we have to figure out a way to increase participation in those kind of diversity workshops for diversity to truly become effective.
No, I would agree with Ms. Davis that it's not necessarily that I think that the law doesn't value diversity. I think that we've had, and I mean, especially, the 3 of us who are sitting on this panel are female. The 3 of us on here are all female attorneys in this country, and I don't necessarily think that they don't value diversity. I think Ms. Davis is correct in up until fairly recently, it's been harder for those in diversity situations to become and get into the practice of law and become, a part of the practice of law. So I think that's something that I think once that starts to matriculate into the actual practice, I think we'll start to see changes. But I think Ms. Davis is right that it's been a long struggle for the legal profession to reach that state.
And even though it's somewhat preaching to the choir with some of those seminars and conclaves, do you feel it's effective for the people that are attending? as far as them reaching out to other, coworkers that may not have attended?
Absolutely. I think that valuable information is obtained in those workshops, conclaves, and seminars. In 2009, the American Bar Association did a major study on diversity and published a 68-page opinion about recommendations and things that people could do to make their firms more diverse, make the bench, the judiciary more diverse, government positions more diverse. So I think it's a matter of sharing information. I think you're absolutely right, Marquetta.
I agree. I always think that the more you talk about it, the more information gets out there, the more apt it is to become to take root and actually disseminate throughout the profession.
Okay. Can either of you explain a time you experienced unconscious bias or exclusion within the workplace that was based on the assumption that you may not have wanted to attend because you're a female or because you're of a certain color? And how did you overcome that?
Well, I can. I've been practicing since 1985, so I probably have a little edge on all of you on the phone call. And when I first started practicing, it was a major issue. I've always practiced with all male attorneys. I'm the only female in my firm. I'm the only African American in my firm, for that matter. There are 9 Caucasian gentlemen and myself. But the firm that I was with before this, it was, I think, 7 Caucasian males and myself. And they pretty much wanted to go out and have dinner or go out and have drinks. And as a female attorney, a challenge that we have is that we have families to go home to. We have to go home and cook dinner while they're going home to their wives who've already cooked dinner. So they'd say I wasn't being social. I was being antisocial because I didn't want to go out and drink after work. But I just had other things on my plate to do that they didn't have to do.
Yeah, in my experience, it's been more of you're a younger attorney. You may not know exactly what, you don't know what you're talking about. I've been in this practice for longer, and and being a female, even though since I practiced in juvenile dependency law, it happens to be that the majority of the people that I work with are we have more females than males in this area of law. There's still that bias because I was a young attorney, or because I am a young attorney, that I'm not as prepared as everybody else, and I don't necessarily know as what I'm talking about as everybody else does.
Attorney Davis touched on the male to female aspect within the profession, and of the 1.3 million attorneys practicing in the United States, women constitute for about a third. So have you ever had to find balance with the stigma of being viewed as a woman, being misconstrued as when you're being assertive, as it coming off as abrasive, being feminine as being considered being a weakness, or even as being a mother as being considered as unavailable for when they have some of these extracurricular activities going on within the workplace? How have you been able to work with that as a professional?
It froze, so I don't know what you asked.
You want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I said that you touched on the aspect of male and female interaction within the workplace. How have you found balance in the stigma of women being interpreted as being assertive, when they're being assertive as being considered abrasive, or when they are being just women in general is sometimes considered being weak as opposed to a male cohort? Or even with if you're a mother, they consider you as unavailable because they assume because you have children that you can't attend certain events. How have you been able to overcome that? And maybe what's some advice you would give to future attorneys or young attorneys who may have to deal with something of that aspect at some point in their careers?
I think I overcame it early in my career. You have to set your own ground rules going into the profession. I knew that my most important job was being a mother. It wasn't working at a law firm. And so I set ground rules with both of my firms that I would work from home And I still work from home. Probably 75% of my time is spent working at home, even though my kids have now gone off to college. My last child went off to college this fall, yes. And but I was always available to my children. And I think as female attorneys, we have to figure out a way to make the balance work. If I go to a school play, then I knew that I had to work until 10 o'clock that night to make up the hours and do my billable hours. So it's a way to make it happen. You just have to set the ground rules at the beginning. And I remember my paralegal telling me when I went to this firm 13 years ago, she said, they're not going to allow you to work from home. I said, well, I set that ground rule up coming in that if you want me, that's one of the conditions that you get me. I'm a hard worker. I will work all night. I will send you emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, but that's after I've done what I've had to do for my family. So you have to figure out a way to make it work.
I agree, Ms. Davis. I think it all comes down to priorities, and you can, as female attorneys, and in my previous life, I haven't experienced necessarily the being called abrasive in the position that I'm in now, but in my previous life, working in policy, I did kind of see some of that because I was discussing policy with some of the union representatives from the District of Columbia, and they think because I'm young, because I'm a woman, they can come in and they're going to tell me about life and they're going to tell me how things are going to go, when and the way I combated that is just being extra prepared. Being extra prepared with whether it was law that I needed behind me, whether it was, whatever I needed to extra prepare for that kind of thing. That's how I kind of combated that. So it wasn't necessarily me being abrasive or me being, difficult. No, there's a reason that we're negotiating this point, or we're not going to negotiate that point.
Agree that you have to be super prepared. And often male attorneys underestimate us, which has probably been one of my strongest points in being a successful advocate, is that male attorneys will often underestimate our capabilities. And that's to their disadvantage.
No, I 100% agree with that. I've walked into court several times where, especially when I first started with what I'm doing, where people would assume that I'm just unprepared because either I had just started this job and I'm new and I don't know what I'm doing. That's never been how I've worked personally, but making sure you are that extra step prepared will combat a lot of what I think a lot of this if you're extra prepared.
With law being one of the least racially diverse professions in the nation, what do you feel needs to be done within the legal field as far as recruiting more diverse individuals into the field of law?
I think the recruitment process has to start at the law school level, because I think universities play a major part in recruitment. Being a graduate of Southern University Law School, of course, I can't really tell you what else they can do, because the premise starts off with educating the minority, the female, the underprivileged person into the legal arena. But I think the other major law schools in Louisiana in particular have to do more to reach out to the minority, the female community, to educate attorneys.
No, I think Ms. Davis is right. I think that reusing and it can and should start at the law school level. But I think even if these schools can start by even going to undergrads and utilizing undergraduate programs, because there are a ton of undergraduate universities that have pre-law programs, and going to them and doing panels like this for the pre-law programs and showing there are women who practice law, there are people of color who practice law, and showing that the legal field can, and there are people who are diverse, who practice in this area, who are in the practice of law, And that, I think, can inspire those who are maybe on the fence, or certain things like that can inspire them to be like, okay, well, this is something that I can do.
Attorney Castillo touched on the generational differences within the workplace, and it's something that's continuously developing because more people are retiring later, and then you have the millennials that are starting to graduate and entering into the legal field. So how do you feel we bridge the gap between these generational groups within the workplace to create a cohesive and effective work environment?
I think one of the best ways to do it, my firm is a prime example. We often say in our firm our collective experience exceeds 200 years. And it's true. We have people who have practiced in our firm for 40, 50 years, some of whom no longer have to take CLE because they've reached the age where they no longer even have to take CLE courses at 65. So, and on the other hand, we have lawyers who just graduated from law school last year in our firm. One of the big things that I think we do in our firm is that we're very good at sharing information. We're very good at older attorneys providing and being a role model or a mentor to younger attorneys. And I think it's very important in bridging that gap to understand each other. There are attorneys in my firm who 2 years ago would not touch their computer. They absolutely just wouldn't do it. And I think the younger attorneys have helped them to move to the point to where they understand that they have to touch their computers. They can't just leave it to their secretaries to do it. So I think younger attorneys play a great role in law firms and assisting older attorneys to catch up with technology in particular.
No, I think communication is a key part in bridging generational gaps, because I have been extremely lucky in the fact that the places that I have worked, that all of the people who I've worked with will answer every stupid question that I have about the area that I'm working in, but it fosters an environment where that communication can take place. So, the younger attorneys can go to the older attorneys and say, hey, let me help you set up, set up your e-filing, or here's how you can pull stuff up on your laptop from the courtroom, so you don't have to carry your files back and forth, things like that. So I think having that communication, being able to foster that environment will help a lot with that generational gap and bridging that shift.
Okay. And I was writing questions to the viewers, but last question. How do you see this career changing within the next 5 or 10 years regarding improvements on diversity and inclusion?
I believe that in the next 10 years, there will be some improvement on diversity and inclusion. I think one of the big things that we as female attorneys can do is get actively involved in the Bar Association, get actively involved in the disciplinary process. As a young attorney, I sought out those methods, and I created great networks in order to get, into break down barriers that previously existed. I've previously been the state chair of the disciplinary board, but it's a process. You have to be willing to put in valuable time and volunteer a lot to get to know persons who are in positions to help make the field more diverse.
No, I agree with Ms. Davis. I think we're going to start to see, especially with, there's been, like I said, this movement for diversity. It's been going on for a long time, and the American Bar Association has been pushing diversity for several years. So I think you're going to see these efforts start to manifest themselves in the profession, and being and you're going to see the profession become more diverse over time.
Okay. And I did get one question from a viewer. Their question is, can you be who you are and still be a lawyer without conforming to what people may expect of you? And did you have to make an extra effort for inclusion within any office or firm that you worked in?
I find that one of the key marks to getting respect in any firm and to be included is to be prepared. It's to be willing to put in the extra hours, and you can be yourself and be an attorney at the same time. You just have to be able to balance your work world with your personal life.
No, I agree. I agree with Miss Green that you can absolutely be yourself and be an attorney at the same time. I think that's actually one of the most important things you need to do to continue to be successful. Is you can't change yourself to fit into that. If that, you have to utilize what you have. And I don't think personally, I don't think you need to conform. And sometimes at big law firms it might be harder to kind of push back on, but I do think that you can be yourself and be a successful attorney. And I know that in my experience, and Ms. Green's might have been different, but I've never had to conform or change myself to fit into any of the organizations that I've worked in, whether it was an internship in law school or postgraduate in any jobs that I've had.
Okay, well, I didn't have any other questions, so that was our last one. I really want to thank both of you for taking time out on a Saturday to be a part of our webinar. And I will be, after we conclude, I'll be able to send you guys a link to the webinar, and I'll also post it on our ABA site so people could view it later. But I still didn't have any other questions. So if y'all had any closing statements you wanted to make, or it's up to you.
Well, I just want to say thank you again for having me. I've really enjoyed being on 2 of the webinars today. If you guys have any questions about being more involved in the American Bar Association or questions about the Young Lawyers Division, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to Marketa, who has my contact information, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or anything like that. Or if you have questions about anything, please feel free to reach out. I'm always willing to take some time and talk with students. So thanks again so much for having me, you guys.
Thank you.
I also would like.
She cut out. Okay. Ms. Davis? Oh, we can't hear you. Ms. Davis? Oh, you kind of
laws and practices and employment decisions that we have to overcome as minorities, as females, as persons who are looking to be more inclusive. I was, in preparing for this work in the seminar, I looked up women attorneys in Louisiana, and to my surprise, the New Orleans Bar Association released a study in 2014 of the first 100 women lawyers in the greater New Orleans area. And to my surprise, the first female lawyer in the New Orleans area was Betty Runnels in 1898. And if you can believe this, Justice Bernadette Johnson only became the 72nd female lawyer in the state in 1969. Wow. So you can see we have a long way to, it took a long time to get from 1 to 72, from 1898 to 1969. So we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, we definitely do. But ladies, I appreciate your time, and I will be sending you guys the link of the broadcast once we wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.